a little
should
bit
know, and I don't know.
because of the computer issue.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission of August 20th, 2025. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, are available online or at the Planning Department, room 213. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. In addition, a copy of all staff reports and other relevant documents for the matters to be considered by the Planning Commission are included in a binder that is located on the dais and is available for the public to review. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, commissioners and the staff, cell phones may not be used in the chamber during any portion of today's meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action today is final on the following item. Item 1.3, Special Permit 25019A. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held August 6, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved, Edens.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Abstain.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
The next item of business on our agenda today is the election of the chair and vice chair for 2-year terms. Is there a nomination for chair?
I'll nominate Christy Joy as chair.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? All right. Shelley, will you call the vote?
Ball,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Christy Joy has been elected to serve as chairperson of the Planning Commission for a 2-year term.
Thank you. I'm honored to sit in the position of chairperson of the Planning Commission. I look forward to working with each of you as we continue to make thoughtful, forward-looking decisions in our community. Let's continue the work ahead of us. Yay. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I move Maribel Cruz as, did I mispronounce that? Don't call me out. As vice chair.
Second, Rodenberg.
Is there any other nominations? Let's call for the vote.
Ball,
Yes.
Cruz,
You can vote for yourself.
Okay, yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Mary Bell Cruz has been elected to serve as vice chairperson of the Planning Commission for a 2-year term.
Yay. Thank you.
I hope to be a strong support for you and the entire Planning Commission, as well as the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County.
Excellent. Thank you. What a great day.
It's fabulous.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will now ask Shelley to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there's anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Shelley, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Item 1.1A, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 25003 to amend the Lincoln Lancaster County 2050 Comprehensive Plan to revise the future land use map from residential urban density use to commercial use on property generally located at South 91st Street and Rokeby Road, associated with 1.1B, change of zone 25017 1450 Reserve Plan Unit Development for a change of zone on approximately 45.83 acres from AG Agricultural to R5 Residential PUD on property generally located at South 91st Street and Rokeby Road. Next item, 1.2, Annexation 25004 to annex approximately 8.56 acres on property generally located at Northwest 48th Street and West Vine Street. Item 1.3, Special Permit 25019A for the Messman ADU for the construction of an accessory dwelling unit with additional waiver on property generally located at 19400 Southwest 72nd Street, and this is final action. Item 1.4, Use Permit 25005 to allow a use permit on a 2.7 acre site to be zoned O3 for up to 15,000 square feet of commercial floor area on property generally located at South 75th Street and Archer Place. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
There are not.
Are there any ex parte communication that took place or additional information you learned while visiting these sites to be disclosed?
There are not.
If there is anyone here wishing to speak on these consent agenda items, please stand and state that item.
Seeing no comments, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second, Rodenberg.
Shelley?
Ball?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Edens?
Yes.
Fife?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Rodenberg?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Approved 7-0.
Thank you. There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearings. Prior to staff making a brief presentation, each staff member should state their name, agency, and address. The applicant will then be requested to present their testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify neutral or in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like to distribute to the Planning Commission or include as part of the record, please provide them to the clerk. Each person testifying should state their name and address and have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The clerk will use the light system to help aid your timing for the testimony. The lights will appear on the monitors provided. The clerk will indicate when you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. The red light indicates that your 5 minutes have expired. Once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will indicate that your time is up. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Shelley, please call the first public hearing item.
Item 4.1, miscellaneous 25010, a request for reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act and Chapter 1.28 of the Lincoln Municipal Code to the zoning code definition of family to allow 10 unrelated persons to reside together as a family on property generally located at 1007 South 16th Street. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this application?
There are none.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of this site to be disclosed?
There are none.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Carey, Director of the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. Pleased to be in front of you this afternoon to walk through this application for reasonable accommodation. What I will do is just kind of make sure that the facts are clearly laid out for both yourselves and for the public before we have discussion on this. And obviously we'll have the applicant here to provide information as well. So just want to be clear that this is a request for reasonable accommodation under Chapter 1.28 of the Lincoln Municipal Code. The Fair Housing Act, both the Nebraska Fair Housing Act and the Federal Fair Housing Act, to make an accommodation to the definition of family as provided in Chapter 27 to include 10 unrelated individuals with disabilities to reside in a dwelling known as Oxford House, Orison, at 1007 South 16th Street. At this location, the applicant has stated that Oxford House is operating, and they are for homes for persons recovering from alcoholism and or drug addiction who are no longer using alcohol or drugs, and that Oxford houses are democratically self-run and financially self-supporting by their residents. The applicant asserts the Oxford House concept provides an opportunity for recovering alcoholics and addicts to maintain their sobriety in a supportive living environment that does not require the provision of services or treatment. Put this map up just so everybody sees where this location is. This is at South 16th Street and E Street in our near south area, south of downtown. Want to just hit on a couple Fair Housing Act points to make sure it's clear and in the record that the Fair Housing Act has stated that it is unlawful to discriminate in the sale or rental or otherwise make unavailable or deny a dwelling to any buyer or renter because of disability. I will go on to explain that it is well established that individuals recovering from drug or alcohol addiction are disabled under the Fair Housing Act. And also that the Fair Housing Act requires cities to make reasonable accommodations to rules, policies, laws, and practices to afford people with disabilities an equal opportunity to live in a dwelling. Couple main points here to identify kind of what this is and what this is not. This use could be considered a collaborative living facility. Under the collaborative living facility, those can be conditionally permitted in all residential zoning districts, of which this is R7, so it is a residential zoning district. At this location, based on the R7 zoning at 875 square feet of lot area, this subject lot has an area of just under 6,000 square feet and therefore could conditionally be approved for 6 unrelated persons as part of a collaborative living facility. So this requested accommodation could be granted under a collaborative living facility for the up to 10 persons as well. And we would also need to consider the parking requirement if that were to happen. This subject property does not fit the definition of a group home, and it also does not fit the definition of transitional living facility, just to be clear. So if there's those questions out there, that is not in play for this submittal in this location, in this operation. Going through the different pieces and parts of what we are to be looking at and have the City Council consider for a reasonable accommodation. I'll go through that list as well, because that is really the meat of this consideration. So item 1 under item 13 in the findings of fact, item 1 asks the question of whether the housing which is the subject of the request will be used by an individual or a group of individuals considered disabled or handicapped under the Fair Housing Act. The residents of this house assert that they are in recovery from addiction to alcohol or other substances and therefore are disabled under the Fair Housing Act. And then when considering if the accommodation requested is financially, therapeutically, or otherwise necessary to make specific housing available to the individual or group of individuals with a disability under the Fair Housing Act, the applicant describes the necessity of the communal sober living in their application materials. And then whether there is an alternative reasonable accommodation available that would provide an equivalent level of benefit. And the use of this property as a collaborative living facility with accommodations for 10 residents to occupy the property could provide the equivalent level of benefit. And then also whether the alternative accommodations would be suitable based on circumstances of this particular case. Again, by right, the applicant appears to meet the conditions required to use the property as collaborative living, so that is an option. By right, it would only allow up to 6 individuals to reside in the residence. The City Council could grant an alternative accommodation for 10 residents as collaborative living facility. Collaborative living facilities require 1 parking space for every 2 residents, so if an accommodation were granted under the collaborative living, the parking requirement would need to be addressed, and the lot appears to accommodate only 4 parking spaces rather than the 5 that would be required in the collaborative living. So if classified as, if that were to happen, an accommodation could be made to all of these regulations pertaining to collaborative living, which would limit the occupancy to less than the 10 requested, including parking lots and requirements, and parking requirements. Then there's the question of, if applicable, whether the requested reasonable accommodation would be consistent with comprehensive plan, land use designation of the property. The comprehensive plan designates this area as urban residential, so the residential use and activity is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Also, considering whether the requested reasonable accommodation substantially affects the physical attributes of the property. No changes physically are proposed. It doesn't mean that the owner would be limited. They could make some changes, but under our consideration that there is no physical change that would constitute some type of substantial change to that property. Another point here is whether the requested reasonable accommodation would impose an undue financial administrative burden on the city. We did have Lincoln Police Department provide us information about calls for service to this location. So the calls for service from January 1, 2023, it amounted to, let me get this right so that I don't say it the wrong way. There were 14 calls for service in the time frame that was available to be studied. And then there were 7 other addresses within one block that had 25 or more. So just basically noting that this location does not rise to the occasion to say that there is an undue, burden on the city as far as the service is concerned there. And then whether the requested reasonable accommodation would require fundamental alteration to the zoning, building, fire, or safety codes of the city. The collaborative living facility, they are conditional use in all residential zoning districts, and this is R7. So we are, as a city, we are saying that the zoning code allows for this under conditional use, in addition to the accommodation request could be considered as well. So that we, the staff, do not identify this as a fundamental alteration. And so, and the other thing to consider here is that if this were to be approved as a collaborative living facility, we would then therefore also be beginning the spacing requirement that we have in our code as well for these. In R7, in the higher density zoning districts, for residential zoning districts, this would be a 500-foot radius that would then be measured from this site. So that's just to get all that information put out there. It's all in our staff report, but it is a way to kind of think through kind of what this is and what the request is, as well as what the alternative accommodation might be under collaborative living, which is what we have in our zoning code. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have. We certainly have the applicant here that will provide probably more detail to the actual location and the operation that is happening on site.
Any questions? No
Okay.
questions at this time?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chairwoman, congratulations.
Thank you.
Members of the commission. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Folson. I'm an attorney at the Rembolt Lutty Law Firm, 1128 Lincoln Mall, Suite 300, Lincoln, Nebraska. I, along with my colleague Nicole Miller, are local counsel for applicant Oxford House Horizon and Oxford House Inc. with respect to the property located at 1007 South 16th Street. I'll also note today, and we'll obviously defer any really tough questions to Dan Hahn and Jackie Alba, who are with Oxford House and have a tremendous familiarity with the program, Dan himself living in an Oxford house. As Director Carey noted, this application is being submitted pursuant to the Nebraska Fair Housing Act, as well as the Federal Fair Housing Act. It's simply not in dispute that the residents of this property are disabled for purposes of federal and state law. The application demonstrates the necessity of communal sober living, that granting the reasonable accommodation request comports with the zoning as well as the comp plan, and permitting 10 individuals to reside at this location would not exceed any building code or other requirements. On this application, we will note we are amenable to the staff's recommendation of designating this as a collaborative living facility with a reasonable accommodation of up to 10 unrelated persons to reside here. With respect to the parking, it's my understanding parking has not been an issue at this location. We do have 4 spots on site. I'm told that there's ample parking in the area, but obviously if there ever was an issue, we'd be more than happy to address it. Do you have any questions?
Do we have any questions?
Maybe for later, but you said there's no doubt that these people are self-professed recovering addicts.
Correct.
And all you have to do is raise your hand and say, I'm a recovering addict, or are there any court-ordered or doctor approved or health department? Is there any way to have these people certified, or could 10 people just raise their hand and say, hey, let's call ourselves addicts and go start an Oxford house.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt there's a certification for being an alcoholic or recovering drug addict, but Commissioner, it probably makes sense to have Dan Hahn come up and be able to answer your specific question if you're okay with that.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good to see you all again.
Good to see you again.
Um,
Can you give your address for the record?
absolutely.
Perfect.
Daniel Hahn, Oxford House Incorporated Regional Manager, 1401 Pioneer Road, Ponca City, Oklahoma, 74601. To answer your question specifically, being a peer-ran best practice since 1975, the people that, we have 4,000 houses and we're widely recognized for that specific purpose. And to enter an Oxford house, it takes an 80% vote of acceptance for the people that arrive. So at that point, and with the fact that we network within the community in depth with drug courts, treatment centers, post-incarceration, probation and parole, or at times street traffic. A lot of times we'll have in a women's house, a wife or a husband show up and say, I can't go home until I get a grip on my problem. So it's a wide net that we throw. But I can't speak for an individual Democratic meeting, but what I can tell you is that's the first question. In our literature, we have traditions very similar to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, and our number one tradition is, do you want to stop and stay stopped? And that's so. I very seldom, I've in 18 years of doing this, I've had people call who are struggling in life with certain circumstances, and very few in the criteria. They're not, hey, unless you have an SUD problem, we're not for you. So I've never have seen that. I've never even seen someone living in a house, in the hundreds of houses that I've been involved with, it's not an alcoholic or a drug addict, and openly claiming that. So we have a very good system in identifying that, and to chime in with what he had said earlier, there's no certification for it because it's egalitarian. Everybody knows somebody that's struggling from it. So, and I will speak on this particular house, and I will openly say it's limited knowledge, except pre-opening. We really like the location because of the parking, the size of the home, sitting in proximity to close things, probation and parole, resource services and stuff like that. That's a really attractive place to be, and it, quite frankly, could hold a lot more people. We kept it at 10. It's a very large home. So and there's parking, it's a corner lot, plus there's double parking in the driveway. So it's just really set up well for what we do. And I heard about the police interaction. I would say the apartment complex across the street chews up most of that.
Okay. Any questions additionally? Go ahead.
In my few years here on the commission, we've seen many applications for accommodations, and we learn this one's been in operation for 3 years already. And there are others. Why not package them all and come to us instead of waiting for complaints and then taking them one at a time?
I would not be qualified to answer that question. That is something that does not fit in my realm. I'm a field general. I make sure the houses are healthy. That's a legal question that I wouldn't be able to answer.
Sure, I'll try to address it. There is a legal issue as far as federal preemption, whether the federal law actually preempts local law on these issues. Nevertheless, Oxford House has demonstrated a willingness to come forward to the extent issues arise. Oxford House nationally, in the vast majority of jurisdictions, does not have to get prior approval. And so this is simply how they have done it in light of the legal opinions they have been given regarding federal law trumping, in essence, local law on these issues. But we're here in a cooperative fashion, and certainly want to do what's necessary to be a good citizen and good neighbor in Lincoln.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on?
Just one question.
Excellent. Commissioner?
The proposed, well, the existing Oxford House is, I believe, 2 streets away from McPhee Elementary.
I do know that, yes, it's close to a school. If I told you the number of houses I have literally connected to a schoolyard, you wouldn't believe me. I mean, I have houses all over the Midwest that are literally connected to schoolyards. I mean, that's never been, through our interview process and research, we make sure that, one of the common questions is finding out legal backgrounds. And a lot of houses, we don't mandate that because, again, we acknowledge ourselves and the houses as single families. But the majority of the houses do their due diligence on the people they're interviewing. I am in no position as in my role with the organization to police that, but it is done. And I think you know where I'm going with that. The type of folks that we're accepting in want to stop and stay stopped, get your life back together, keeping it right there. And they're and it is up to the discretion of the house of who they accept, but we do have some common parameters that we follow. So I have never I've never had any issues with the house in proximity to school or church or stuff like that, and I haven't let that stop us because in these cases and including this one, when we start a house, okay, I live in a house, but that's just because my community needed it. I live in a small community with a lot of native population, and we really needed some strong houses in there, and I wanted to build a foundation, so I moved in the house voluntarily after being out for 10 years. But when we start a new house, we're very careful about who we put in there, and we start the house according to our literature, which is with people that have lived successfully in another house, understand how we work, and then they also have the outreach support. So it started off the right way, and that eliminates a lot of that. We make sure, now if we just threw the house out there and didn't support it, I would understand the concern of your question, for sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
Commissioner.
probably just want to add a little bit more. So within the staff report, they said there were over a 2-year period, a number of calls to the police department. Without necessarily going through details, I mean, what kind of categories are we talking about, issues that could arise with this home?
Mr. Ball, I can tell you that I have no knowledge of any incidents at that house, and I'm required to fill out incident reports. That's not to say that somebody didn't have a health issue or something in there, but we have a very good system in keeping track of things that go on, and I have no record of except silence from that house, and that's just lack. If there is something, none of us know about it. It's not that it didn't happen, but we don't know about it.
Obviously, I'll defer to LPD, whatever the records show. Based upon what was publicly available to us, the vast majority of those claims were welfare checks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Rich?
And this may, thank you. So there are ordinances within the city of Lincoln that deal with proximity to other homes such as this. And there are also, as mentioned, limits to the square footage. Are you proposing that we don't have to take those into consideration?
Well, in this particular application, we satisfied both of those requirements. So we're in compliance on both of those in this application.
Including the recommendation that the size of the house would only allow 6 residents.
Well, we're asking for a reasonable accommodation of up to 10. That's the reasonable accommodation that federal law requires a body such as yours to consider.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now that we've heard testimony from the applicant, is there anyone here to testify in support? Anyone in a neutral capacity? Any testimony in opposition? Any staff questions? And yeah, just a couple here.
I'll wait and see if there's questions first, and I want to do a point of clarification.
On the size of the home,
Mm-hmm.
clarification on that, and then the connection and requirements with the school within
Okay.
district.
The size of the physical size of the home is not part of our regulations for collaborative living, or if we were considering, you know, the basic requests that they have based on definition of family. The clarification that I want to make sure we're making is that the applicant has gone on record saying that they are willing to go under the collaborative living designation with a reasonable accommodation of up to 10 people. So what our regulations do state is that we base our numbers on the size of the lot that the house is on, not the size of the house. In this case, they could conditionally be approved up to 6. Their request now is for your consideration, is now under collaborative living for the reasonable accommodation up to 10 persons. And then I can coordinate with our applicant kind of on the fly here that it would also be a request for accommodation of the parking to 4 instead of the 5 that would otherwise be required.
Up to 5.
You'd be,
I apologize. Yeah. It's my understanding we have 4 spots on location, so the 5 is what we'd be requesting. But we are amenable to having it categorized as collaborative living with a reasonable accommodation of up to 10.
okay, and then just so I'm clear and then the commissioners are clear, what you're requesting is that you'd only be required to have the 4 on site, 4 parking spaces on site.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I would say that if that were to be your motion to approve, you would need to include that part as well,
Okay,
just to be clear with the record and so we know what we're doing.
excellent.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? This is the time for applicant rebuttal, if you'd like to say anything.
If you have any questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I think we've spoken.
I think we're good. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second, Rodenberg?
Ball,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Public hearing closed.
I move to approve a reasonable accommodation to the city zoning for collaborative living for a maximum of 10 individuals with a waiver to the 5 parking requirement, 5 parking on-site down to 4 parking on-site under miscellaneous 25010.
Second, Ryman Yost.
Okay, let's have our discussion.
The law is clear. These are people with a disability. They qualify under the federal law. Whether they should have done it beforehand or not, I think we need clarification on the law and some type of teeth behind it before we can do that. The minute they come to us with a reasonable accommodation, we have to grant it, or we're just gonna kick the puck, cost the city thousands of dollars in lawsuits, and they're still gonna be able to operate a sober living house there, whether we want to or not. We have other laws with the school. There's a guideline on registered sex offenders within so many feet of the school, so that's an entirely separate issue other than this sober living facility. So once again, I think whether we like them or not, or whether they're doing a great job or they're not doing a great job, I think the law is pretty clear that these are allowed under our zoning and that we need to grant a reasonable accommodation.
And I want to clarify, I'm working under the assumption that if we are talking about recovering individuals, they would not be consuming drug or alcohol around children. Therefore, it's a moot point.
Yes, absolutely. And I think nobody asks me if I'm disabled. They don't. I come in my wheels, it's pretty apparent. And before I used my wheels, people didn't ask me, and I still couldn't walk very well. So I think we got to take people at their word if they say they're sober and that's the lifestyle they want. I think that's what we have to do. And I will stand firm behind that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add I was not here for the last house that was in front of the Planning Commission, and this has been going on for a couple of years. We've been looking at these, and it has been an incredible opportunity for me to learn as somebody who has been in child welfare and juvenile justice and working with people with disabilities for a long time. I have had a lot to learn about substance use disorder and people's recovery journey, and I think community care is an important part of that. And so if we are able to help support people do it well, I think it's an important thing to do.
Good.
I have one more comment, so sorry.
Okay.
That house is 3,000 square feet. I had 8 in my 1,000 square foot house. So as far as space on some of these sober living houses, kudos to this one for keeping it to a reasonable number, 5 bedrooms, 2 people per bedroom. That is one of the more reasonable ones I've seen. I think it's a big house on a smaller lot, and that's why the collaborative living seems such a drastic reach. But house size, kudos.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. We've done a good job of really looking at this. Thank you, everyone, for your testimony and staff for all your hard work. Shelley, would you please call the vote?
Ball.
Yes.
Cruz.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Fight.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Motion approved 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item?
Uh-oh.
Excellent.
Sorry, I guess I should have waited for anybody else to go up here before I came up. So, I just want to take a minute that I didn't do at the beginning of the meeting to thank Cindy for your service as chair. You did an excellent job, and wanted to put it on the record that we very much are appreciative of that work, and we look forward to working with our new chair and new vice chair. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. I will also just take a second then to thank everyone on the staff in the planning department, which makes serving as chair a reasonable thing to do. And it's really been an incredible learning opportunity for me, and I've really appreciated the opportunity to be a part of what's going on in our city and working with all of you. So looking forward to your leadership, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Wait 2 seconds. Let's make sure if there's anyone here wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda, they may do so. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second, Edens.
Shelley.
Ball.
Yes.
Cruz.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Fight.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
We are adjourned.